Every professional has a unique magic waiting to be discovered. At Finding the Unicorn in You helps you unlock your hidden potential. Thank you for tuning in. Now switching it over to our host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. I'm very excited for today's guest. We have a person who is a copy coach for empaths. She believes that connecting with your heart is the only way to write truly powerful copy and talk about your business easily, naturally, and effectively. She is from the UK and lives in the Netherlands. She works with some of the nicest people on earth and across the globe. So without further ado, help me to welcome Lynn Coleman. Hi.
Hi, Jaime. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Tell me a little bit about your world and what made you want to get into that.
Oh, wow. That's so do you want a quick answer or do you want a long answer?
Yeah, we have time, whatever you want.
Yeah, so I studied languages at uni, so languages were always my thing. And then I took 20 years after uni working in IT, and eventually I started going back towards languages. And one of the reasons using language, and one of the reasons I did that was because I could see that it was a real block for a lot of people. So that's what I've been really exploring and experimenting with over the last 5 years in really, how can I help these amazing people feel confident writing? It just makes me really happy when I see somebody be able to do that.
I love that. So why? So I know you're interested in language, but like, what about language is it that like fascinates you?
It's lots of things. I think it's partly that a language always tells you something about somebody's culture
Hmm.
and how they look at life. So you can't really get a culture if you don't speak the language. So that was how it started with me learning other languages. But I love the fact that you can put words together. There's a sort of musicality to words if you do it right. It's almost like creating a piece of music, but it also has an effect. You can help people to feel something. You can help people to understand something. And if you're writing copy, hopefully you can help people decide if they want to do something with you or not. So words are really powerful things.
Yeah. And then for listeners that may not understand what copy is, can you explain that to them?
I always describe it as copy is writing with an aim to get somebody to take action. So you'll see it in marketing. If you ever watch, actually, I spent a lot of time doing this when I first started writing copy, was I'd watch those TV shows with the telesales shows and watch how they did it. But wait, and all of those little things that they say along the, but you're not going to get it for $4.79 today, not even for this. No, you get it today for whatever. So it's that kind of writing. It doesn't have to be as tacky and icky as that, but it's writing to get people to actually take action. So if you've ever bought anything off one of those telesales TV shows, a copywriter did their job.
I like that. And I know sometimes, especially as a business owner, we know that we have to sell things in order, we need to tell people and tell them what we do so that we can sell it to them. But there's this term that I've heard, don't be too salesy, because then people will automatically find out and then be deterred from it. So how do you find that good balance between telling people what you do, but at the same time, not be too aggressive where they're like, oh no, you're coming on too strong.
Yeah, it's literally that. If you've ever been in a bar where a guy has come up to you and he's very keen on you and you're really not very keen on him, we know what that's
Yeah.
what really salesy copy is. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you want to retreat. It makes you feel like you want to be anywhere but there. But good copy doesn't need to be like that. In the same way as somebody else can come up to you, they can start talking to you in a way that interests you, that involves you in the process, that gets you thinking, and then you're listening to what they have to say. And good copy does that. So it's not the bore in the bar way of doing things. It really is about helping. As much as anything, I think great copy helps people understand things. It helps them to take steps, in their own ideas, in their own emotions. If you read great copy, you should be thinking to yourself, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So whether somebody buys from you or not, you're helping somebody understand something.
No, I love that. And it's really coming from that place of wanting to truly help. And if you go in with that sense of wanting to serve others, people will naturally come to you.
Yeah. And if you go in with that idea, I've got to tell everybody I meet about this amazing thing that I do, whether they want to, and I don't care whether they listen to me or not, but I'm just going to wear them down. No, Lois, please not do that. I think people, especially if you're writing copy or selling your own services, it's tricky because it feels like selling you. And people tend to go in one of two directions. Either they get very shy and I'm quite good at this, but yeah, but they hold back because they don't want to be overly aggressive. They don't want to be the bore in the bar. And then some people, they just don't, they either they don't realize they're doing it, or they just don't know how to do it. And so they go for that bore in the bar approach.
Mhm.
But there's a place in the middle where it's more about communication, and where the focus is less on you and more on the person you're talking to, and then it all becomes a lot more comfortable.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think a little bit of that is you have to know who you are at your core. So really, what is your brand? What is your message trying to really portray, and does it align with you? Because if you're trying to be someone that you're not in your copy and it's not sounding like your own voice in a certain way, I think it can create a distortion, and people sense that because studies show that people nowadays tend to buy more from when they build a relationship with a vendor versus a random Joe, like door to door sales. So they need to trust the person that they're trying to buy services from. So if you make it sound more like yourself, I feel it works better. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you're making perfect sense, and you're completely right. If you look at like how we did used to write copy and how we did used to sell, it was watch Mad Men and see the way that how it used to work. Yeah, which was all about, I'm going to tell you what you need and what you want, and I'm going to convince you of that. And that was that worked in a certain age when you only had a certain number of TV channels and a certain number of media, but that doesn't work anymore. And we've got so used to so many different social media channels, so many different TV channels, YouTube channels, all of that means that we've got lots of different input going on all the time. And we've also learned that not everybody's trustworthy online.
Yeah.
Oh, big surprise. But that makes people hold back. So that element of being trustworthy and being authentic, being yourself, is becoming more and more important. And the research I've seen is that the younger people are, the more important that is. So that's absolutely the future.
And it's interesting that you said something there where there's a lot of people online that are not trustworthy. And because of all these scams and these snake salesmen, or like oil, I forgot what the terminology is, but yeah, snake oil. Yeah. Yeah. It has created bad rep for certain industries, especially for coaching industries and like consulting industries. So I feel because of that, an aversive reaction is that a lot of coaches, consultants now feel that they have to be overqualified in order to do like give advice or coach. So I see a lot of coaches not offer their services because they're like, I need to have this certification and this certification. I need to have X amount of experience. I need to have this many hours of coaching, but I can't start coaching until I get this certification. And it's like all of these excuses get overwhelmed. They invest so much money and then they close down their business because they never actually sold anything. How do you overcome that fear of just putting yourself out there and do the copy?
First of all, I think it is important that you have something of value to share. So one of the reasons, and I think this is why people hold back. So there are people who are selling their business coaching experience. They make 100K in in 2.5 days sort of people, where you just know they've never done it themselves and they're just saying that in the hope that you're going to hire them.
Yeah.
People are holding back because of that. They don't want to be that icky, yucky, don't want to be that salesman or the bore in the bar. But it is important that you have some kind of experience, expertise, skills. It may not be, ultimately, I think it was Maya Angelou who said it's how you make people feel. I'm not quoting her well, but it's people will never forget how you make them feel.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the time is one of the most important things in any kind of coaching or consultancy sort of situation, is how do you make somebody feel? Do they feel able to grow when they're around you, or do they feel like they have to shrink to give you space? That's not what we want. There's a combination of, yes, you have to have a skill, you have to have the personality, you have to be willing to serve. But that's usually not the issue with a lot of coaches that I see. It's more the problem with getting out there, all of the, I need the qualification, I need to do this first, I need that first, is really about a sort of underlying self-doubt.
Yeah.
And who's going to listen to me if? And what we really need to be saying to ourselves is, why wouldn't they listen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that you look outside yourself and see people who you consider wise and effective and all of those good things, but you don't see that in yourself? And I think for a lot of coaches, I work with healers as well. They're amazing at focusing on the other people, and that is part of the way that grown up, the sort of skill set they've gained, and that means that it makes them amazing at what they do. But it makes the selling of it really tricky. It's the other side of the coin.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And it's not using all these like barriers to stop you. Because one of the comments I've had from other coaches that I've talked to, and they're like, you got your doctorate degree, so you have authority. And I was like, I didn't get my doctorate degree to create authority. I got it because I truly was interested in the topic and I wanted to learn more about it. And the only way for me to learn more is by enrolling into this program. I could have done it by going to the library and or like the e-library and looking stuff. If I already know my personality, I won't do it unless I have an assignment to do and learn it that way. I need the accountability portion. So I was like, my accountability was the program. So at the end of the day, does it look nice? Yes. But I didn't do it because I felt I had to. It's because I wanted to. So do these educations to enhance you, these professional development opportunities to take you to the next level intellectually, not because of an insecurity or because of fear of rejection or fear of being invalidated, but more so because you naturally want to grow and be interested in that topic, and then see how you can intertwine that with the services you provide.
Yeah, and I would take it one step further as well. I've got two sisters. They both have PhDs. I don't. I felt that the direction that I was going in, I felt that doing something like a PhD, and that's all very well, but what can I do with it?
Mhm.
And I also felt, looking at it, I thought, I'll probably know more than most of the people who would be teaching me. So what is the point? I'm a great believer in education. I've got a lot of it. I've got a degree. I've got halfway through another degree. I've done postgraduate qualifications. I'm not afraid of education, but education can also be a way of putting off the fact that there is always going to be a day when you're going to have to go out there and say, look, this is me. This is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And if you want to, you can hire me. And also allow for the fact, and I think this is the thing that's really behind it, somebody can also choose not to hire you. So there's a big fear of rejection that's part of having your own business as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you're not always going to be everybody's cup of tea. I've had clients who rejected me because they felt that because of my title and my experience, I was going to be too expensive for them, or I was going to be too formal. They said
Oh, wow.
I had somebody reject me because they said, I want someone who's more down to earth. And I was like, you haven't even had a conversation with me. So how do you, as why do you assume I'm not down to earth? But it's a lot of assumptions because like you will attract the right people based on your personality, who you are, and how you present yourself. So it doesn't matter what education you have or where you are in life. Like you're gonna attract certain people as long as you show like your authentic self. I have colleagues that are way more successful than me that only have a high school diploma, but their business is booming. Everybody loves them, and they're very intelligent. And intelligence is something that you can't really measure in a sense of because there's so many different categories of intelligence, and there's certain things that you learn from that you can't learn anywhere else from a book. It has to be through experience. So it's everybody's smart and intelligent in their own way. Just because you have certain letters in front of your name does not make you better than or less than anybody else.
No, one of the things that I did study, I spent a while, so I got like half a psychology degree, and I remember doing a course, intelligence, and I got through 100 hours of study into the subject of intelligence. And the whole conclusion of this book about intelligence is what intelligence tests measure. And that was like the conclusion. Right, 100 hours for that. Yeah, what is it anyway?
Yeah.
Everybody has it in their own way. We all have our own gifts and skills and experiences, and yeah.
No, completely agree. And it's just like leaning in with what you know. If you want to expand yourself because it organically comes out of curiosity, then do it. Not because you feel you have to because of certain restrictions. But going into this professional development sector, what is one thing that really helped you to move forward and grow professionally in your career?
Actually, I think I want to talk about something that didn't help me.
Okay.
I want to take that in a different direction, because I had a long time where I would have a lot of questions in my head and I wouldn't listen to those questions because people were giving me other answers and I was listening to other people's answers. This is advice I would give to anybody. So, for example, I remember having a conversation with a manager of mine when I was working in IT, and he said, "What's the most important thing that a manager can do?" And I thought about it and I said, "Listen to your team." Because I thought, okay, so if you listen to your team, then you're going to get information. If they feel able to talk to you, you're going to get better information. That's going to allow you to do a better job. If they feel listened to, they're going to open up and, they're going to work harder. Made perfect sense to me. Then this guy who was 20 years older than me, something like that, said, no, he said, what a great manager can do is slam his fist on the table and say, and this is how we're going to do it. And I remember thinking, oh, I just felt so flabbergasted by that. I thought, what am I supposed to do with this? And being a woman in a male industry, male-dominated industry, I thought, yeah, I'm 5 foot. So there's this woman who, who I've been called auntie for as long as I can remember. Auntie is going to slam her fist on the table and people aren't going to burst out laughing. Come on, it's just not going to work. But it did make me doubt how I was going to do things, because it was so far from what I felt was right. What I've learned from that is that a lot of prevailing advice is, first of all, you've got to think, who's giving you the advice? If it's somebody who's 20, 30 years older than you, yes, it may be experience. It may also be they've never questioned something that they've been doing for 20 or 30 years and it's just a bad idea. Also, can you apply their experience and their ideas to you? A guy who's 6 foot tall and 250 pounds and slamming his fist on the table has a different effect to a woman of 5 foot. I can't do business in the same way as that guy. So I think it's just really important to always ask yourself, that little voice in your head or in your heart, if you notice that you feel a bit disappointed or thinking, oh, is that how it really is? Or that little
those kind of moments, no, it's not. You just want to do it differently. Trust that. Listen to it and go with it. I could have saved myself a lot of time by doing that.
I like that a lot. And you have to be able to listen to yourself and listen to what works for you. Not every method's going to work for everybody. And that something that just came to mind, and it was like an important lesson that I learned a long time ago, which was, the solution that you're trying to solve that problem, is it a long-term solution or is it a short-term solution? And not every solution is going, even though it may solve the problem right now, are you going to be okay with the unintended consequences that are going to come with it later?
Yeah.
So that leader that is slamming his fist down on the table saying, listen to me, respect me, he's leading out of fear, out of this sense of like more aggressive, more dominant sense. But the unintended consequences of that is that it may be effective right now, but it can create insecurities. It can create turmoil. It may create communication issues. It may create like relationship and rapport barriers between their employees, which overall, those are all consequences of burnout and employee turnover. So even though the processes will be smooth now, later, like a couple months from now, a couple of years from now, you're going to lose a lot of people. Versus if you go with a different route, it can have other unintended consequences. So which ones are you more likely? So you really have to think about the short-term and the long-term effects of the actions you do today.
Absolutely. And even if somebody doesn't leave the business, there's an even worse thing is that they leave mentally and emotionally, but they're still on the payroll.
Yeah.
That's even worse. And just, we know that a lot of people have been through tough things in life. What does it do to be sat opposite somebody who slams their fist on the table? It can be seriously scary. Choose to do things in a different way. If you were in a situation where you were feeling like scared or intimidated at work, are you going to speak up and give somebody your amazing, slightly offbeat idea for something? No, you're going to keep your mouth shut. It costs money, this kind of thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like you said, just because something's effective now doesn't mean it's always going to be effective.
No. So listening to myself speak, I'm realizing that I still agree with what I said back then. See, I haven't changed my mind. And literally, I'm now talking. Oh, wow, this was quite a long time. So I literally 30 years on, I still think the same thing. Hey, I might be one of those old people who's hasn't changed their ideas much.
But there's a difference between changing your ideas for the better or adapting or not changing because you feel like you're right and everybody else is wrong. But if you've tested it out, heard feedback, and you've like really seen that your methods do prove better results overall, then maybe you have something, maybe you were just really early on in that concept.
Yeah, I think that is something as well that's true of a lot of coaches and consultants, and it is quite tricky to manage in that we can get a sense of what's coming and the changes that are coming, and it can be hard to say those things out loud. And I've learned as well over the years that if I think something's likely to happen, there's a really good chance it is actually going to happen. And the challenge is then to learn how to communicate that and to understand that people might not believe you yet, which is very frustrating, but it is what it is.
Oh yeah. The best you can do is guide them in the right direction. But at the end of the day, you can't bring you can bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to be able to make that choice themselves. You can guide them and give them all the right prompts, but they have to be able to make the choice for the betterment of themselves. Because if you do it for them, then they won't really see the value in it.
Yeah, and I think generally people do learn best by experiencing the things for themselves, don't they? They have to make their own mistakes. We may not want to go too political here, but there are things that I've been seeing building up for years now, and they are coming out, and some people haven't even noticed they're happening yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be very self-aware of everything that's going on, especially as a business owner. You can't just go in blindly, not knowing how the economy is going, how like what's going on in politics. So all of that does affect like with what's going on. Like here in the States, one big thing that I fail to see is that how is my business was getting impacted with the new election? A lot of individuals that I had went into saving mode. So they ended up canceling coaching contracts because they're like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen these next 4 years. So I'm going to be a little bit more conservative with my money and save. So I no longer have the privilege of switching jobs. I no longer have the privilege of investing in myself. So I'm going to cancel. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think that was an option. It's because I was in going blindly saying, oh, I'm in this happy train. I'm doing well. And I was like, oh, now I have to readapt kind of how I view things and how I pitch myself and things. So you have to be able to be ready to pivot no matter what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know from a lot of coaches and healers, when life gets complicated and things start happening that they're not comfortable with, then a lot of them retreat into their own shell. And that's absolutely not the time to retreat into your own shell. We all need processing time, but there are people out there who need you. So we have to find a way to communicate even in the middle of the mess.
Exactly. So it's keep showing up, keep putting yourself out there, and then trying to do the best you can. This actually is a good segue into my next section, which a lot of that is easier said than done.
Mhm.
The stress, the anxiety, the thoughts can get very overwhelming. What can we do, or what is something you do to be able to ground yourself and then just relax and decompress all of that?
I've spent a long time learning a lot of techniques, so I can give you a couple of techniques that I've learned. I found the work really valuable. So that's Byron Katie. That's it's a way of facing up to the emotions that you're experiencing, not running away from them. Because a lot of the time our stress is because we run away from what we're feeling. We're trying to avoid things. So in this method, you face the emotions and then you start dissecting them and pulling them apart, and they end up disappearing. So once I'd practiced that technique, and it took quite a long time to practice it, I could be scribbling away. I mean, writing, because hey, that's my thing. But I'd be writing away for a sort of an hour, and then I'd start bursting out, and then I'd be bursting out laughing as I'd realized what I'd done to myself. So that's an amazing technique. That's one thing that's really worked for me. Really hard. It doesn't always work. I give myself grace if it doesn't work. Meditating. So as often as I can. And if it gets really bad, then I give myself a day off. I did this last week. It all got a bit too much. My mum was sick. She was in hospital. There were all kinds of things going on. I gave myself a day off and I watched Outlander. So that's probably tip number 3. Binge TV. If it's for one day, if I give into it, even I don't do it for more than a day on the sofa, watching whatever. And then the next day I'll find the shoots of new ideas coming up again. And then I've had a rest, and then creativity starts up again, and then it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think all those 3 things are really good. And I really like to emphasize the last one, which is allow yourself grace, give yourself grace and allow yourself to rest. Because it's really easy for us to just be in work mode 24/7 and not do things for ourselves. And I teach this to all my clients, and then yet I still fall into the same like trap where I'm like on the go, and I love what I do. So for me, I keep telling myself this is not work because I love what I do, but at the same time, it's still work is work. It's going to impact you whether if you love it or not. You still have to take days where you're going to recollect yourself, ground yourself, watch that favorite TV show, go on for a walk, go hang out with your loved ones, do something to distract your mind from the current processes, because even too much of a good thing can turn toxic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a bit of an American problem, to be honest, as well. If you look at Europe, we grow up with an idea of having more vacations, and there's an idea of working 40 hours a week. Some countries it's 35 hours a week. There's a different work-life balance than there is a lot of the time in the States as well. And obviously there's that old puritanical idea of the people who work hard get into heaven first. That's literally what Protestant religion was. One of the tenets of Protestantism was work hard and get Protestant work ethic. And you'll literally get into heaven earlier was the idea. I don't think we still need to be doing that.
No, no. Your worth is you have self-worth, whether no matter what you do, you still have value and you still have self-worth. You don't have to prove yourself in every single day in order to increase your value. You already have value.
Yeah. I spent quite a lot of time in Morocco, and one of the things that I loved about being there was that, and this sounds crazy, but I couldn't really speak to anybody, but I tried to communicate. I was there with my kid's father, and I couldn't really speak much Arabic, a little bit, or their local language, a Berber language, but I wanted to connect with people. They weren't at all interested in what I did, wasn't at all relevant. What they cared about was looking me in the eye, and did they believe that I was a nice person or not? Was I a good person? And that taught me so much about my ideas about myself. What really matters, it's not what I do, it's who I am.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a really valuable lesson to learn. And you are who you are. Like going back to the same thing, show up authentically, be yourself, and just know that you have value for you being you. Now, we are running out of time, so I want to ask you the last question of the podcast, which is the premise of the whole podcast. What is the unicorn lesson that has made you the person that you are today?
Okay, let's see how to explain this quickly because we don't have that much time. About 20 years ago, I spent a year hiding, literally hiding from my ex, the Moroccan guy I was talking about. And that was an incredible experience in itself of trying to hide in a modern society, which is basically impossible to do. And then coming back from that, for a long time, I felt like I was the only one who was trying to hide. But then I started seeing how many people were hiding too. So you didn't have to have been in some kind of a shelter or that kind of a situation to be hiding. I could see people holding back, keeping themselves small, not expressing themselves fully, not being complete themselves around other people. And that made me realize just how many people spend all their lives hiding. So that to me was a really big one that I thought, wow, it's not just me. I literally was hiding, but there are other people who are doing this in their everyday lives and they don't even realize they're doing it. And that's the thing that led me into helping people stop hiding. Because words are one of our best ways to hide, but also one of our best ways to connect.
That is a very powerful lesson. And I think a lot of us do inadvertently do that. And like me, myself, I think that hit really hard just because like really deeply, because I feel like I've had to hide parts of myself for very long time frames. And I think because of that, it's so easy for us to go into that place of like concealment because it feels safe for us.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
even though it feels safe, it's very toxic for ourselves because it starts hitting our mental health. It starts hitting our self-esteem, our self-worth, our contribution towards society. Like you're not really doing much when you're in this corner. And it doesn't benefit anybody by you making yourself small. And what I learned from unhiding myself is the impact that I have made in people's lives and my community, my family, myself, by showing my true colors has been so massive that if I would have decided to stay in that corner, who knows how these individuals that I've impacted, how their lives would have turned out if I decided not to show up. So it's like everything you do has a ripple effect around you, whether you realize it or not. So might as well be yourself, do good in the world, do as much as you can, show up and live a happy life. Life is so finite. It's so small.
Yeah.
Why live it in the shadows? Do the best you can out there and just be happy. Try to live the best life you can each day.
Yeah, that's so true. And you were just talking about the ripple effect. There's the ripple effect on your clients, but think about what happens after that. Those clients go home to their partner and they're nice to their partner instead of being in a bad mood, or they go into work and they approach things in a different way. The ripple effect is not just the relationship between you and your client. It goes much further than that. And I think that's a really powerful idea, especially in a time when it feels like our powers and our authority is being maybe dampened down. But in that way, we have way more influence than we realize.
Oh yeah, definitely. This has been such a beautiful conversation. I can probably go for another hour, but unfortunately we only have an hour, but it's been such a very impactful conversation. Thank you so much, Lynn, for all of your golden nuggets of advice. If somebody wants to hire you to do copy, follow your journey, or just has questions, how can they do so?
You can find me on yourepicbusiness.com or the podcast Conversations About Power.
Awesome. And if you have not listened to it yet, we actually had another conversation together where I guested in Lynn's podcast. So I'll put that in the show notes as well as Lynn's links for her information. If you also go to my website at rainbowcareercoaching.com, if you go to the Unicorn Wall of Fame, you'll see Lynn there on the Unicorn Wall of Fame, along with a bio, her links, and a description of this podcast as well. Final reminder, episodes do come out every Friday at 7 a.m. Please subscribe and share this content so it gets shared to so many more people and people can start learning these concepts. Any last words before we close up today, Lynn?
No, I really feel like we've said a lot today. Jaime, thank you so much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed this conversation as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing
Myself in the Unicorn Hall of Fame.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm so glad that you were able to come on here. Thank you so much. And until next time, everyone.